Okay, so again, make sure that you're answering in complete sentences and you're providing text evidence. So for number 4, it says, how does the speaker's description of flowers develop the meaning of the poem? So we are looking specifically at the description of flowers in the poem. So I would just break down and do that first. So if I pull up my poem, I'm going to say, okay, what parts are talking about flowers? So right here, it's talking about flowers in the first stanzas, always watered, fed, guarded, admired, harnessed to a pot of dirt. So I'm going to go highlight that because that's just a signal to me, hey, this is talking about flowers. I'll continue reading through. I notice in stanza 4, it says, then to be a pleasant smelling flower growing in clusters in the fertile valley where they are praised handles plucked by greedy human hands. So that's all talking about being a flower. A pleasant smelling flower. It's growing in clusters. They're praised, handled, then plucked. And then it talks about greedy human hands. And then on this last stanza, it says then to be sweet, fragrant lilac. So now that I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, so what is my question about it? It says, what is the description? And how does it develop the meaning in the poem? So I've identified the descriptions. Now let's see about what it means about developing meaning. So remember we said that there's emotion behind words. So what I really want you to think about is the author being positive or is it being negative? So I'm going to look at each part in each stanza and I'm going to say, okay, is it positive or negative or a mix of both? So it says, let them be as flowers, always watered, fed, guarded, and admired. So if I think about taking care of something, I would want it to be guarded. I would want it to be fed. I would want it to be admired. So that's a good positive thing. And it says, but harnessed to a pot of dirt. So when I think of something being harnessed, that means that it's stuck there. So it's stuck in a pot of dirt. And I don't necessarily think that that is a positive thing. So I'll say that that part is negative. So the first part was positive, and now the next part was negative. Then I look at this next part. Then to be a pleasant smelling flower growing in clusters in the fertile valley. So when I think about that, I'm like, okay, all good and fine, pleasant smelling, good deal, growing in clusters, great, in the fertile valley, great. They have what they need, where they're praised, which I think is a good word, handled, then I'm like, okay, like being handled isn't necessarily always a good thing. And then plucked, and I think like that could kill a flower. So plucking is not a good thing. That's a negative thing. And then it says by greedy human hands. And what I think is interesting about that is when they say something's greedy, I don't necessarily think greedy is a good thing. So it's saying humans are being greedy. So I think that's negative. So it kind of started out positive again, and then it went negative. And then in this last part, it just says the sweet, fragrant lilac. And so that's kind of neutral. It's not good nor bad. But now I want to go back and think about my question. So it says the speaker's description of flowers, develop the meaning. So when I'm saying develop the meaning, I'm thinking about kind of like the theme of the poem. And so yesterday in your other side of slides that you did TP cast over, you came up with a theme. And whatever that theme is, I want you to think about how did the descriptions of flowers or the explanation of what the flowers are like relate to your theme? How did you learn your lesson from the descriptions of flowers necessarily? So remember when you're typing your answer, you're going to say something like, the speaker's description of flowers develops the meaning of the poem by blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to provide a quote from the poem. Make sure to identify stanzas that give us our answer. If you have questions, come see me at Teacher Table. I'm more than happy to help you out. I know that this one's a little more difficult in leveling, so I'm definitely more than happy to help.